We have to raise our standard for everybody. Now, once we get to a point, there's always going to be a leveling out point, but we are so oppressed and depressed in our wages now that we have to raise everybody up to jumpstart our economy and make it sort of functional.
Yeah,
and then building economy.
On that point, you're right, is that your living wage bill is not going to be inflationary, because inflation's already rampant in this economy, and nothing has been done to curb it. In fact, the oil prices really ran everything through, and so you're right.
We have no control over inflation here.
Exactly. There's got to be a mechanism to make it right.
Exactly. Now the trick is, now talking about industry, this is something that I look for down the road, because I'm just so busy now trying to get through some of these basic fixes with the destroyed public structure that we have. But one of the things that, when you talk about business, a lot of folks think that the only way to have an industry that works is if they're exporting things. But we don't really need to. Now, just one example, you think about it. We have 33,000 kids in the public school system, or about 31 now. We've had a couple thousand get out. About 31,000 kids. Almost all of them have to wear a uniform every day. So that means most of them own 5 uniforms, one so they can have one every week. And probably they have to replace them every year. That's about 150,000 shirts that we import to Guam every year. That's a significant market. Now, when we look about how we can develop economies that work, we can hire workers on Guam, we can make them on Guam, we have a fixed market, so all you got to do is put in cost plus. So whoever the investor is, as long as they have the fixed market, they're going to make their 10% profit. You negotiate, you let them unionize, they negotiate whatever salaries they do. It's a pass-through provision like it is on everything else. So we have living wage jobs, and we keep this money in our economy. Do we need to sell shirts back to the United States or to Japan, Australia? No. All we need to do is build economies that work for us. So instead of like sending that $3 per shirt to China or to the Philippines or Taiwan, the $4 that we spend for shirts actually stays in our economy. It might cost an extra $1 more per shirt, but it stays in our economy and the money circulates and builds in our economy. That's a hard concept for a lot of people to get through, but we can do it. We have done it. I mean, a real good example is beer. We drink a lot of beer on Guam. We love beer. I love beer. Beer's great, right? But you know what? It's all shipped in. Every bit of it. Well, except for we have one small brewery, right? There was a time we had a brewery here. You know those large neck bottles that you get, right? These days when you buy a bottle of beer, it's got a long neck on it. There was a time when the only place you could get those long neck bottles was in a bar. And it's because they recycled them. No, let me change that. They didn't recycle them, they reused them, which is far more efficient than recycling. So the long neck beers, like say Corona, where they have the silkscreen label on them, would go right back to the bottling plant, be washed out, refilled with beer, and back on the shelves the next day. Now think about that. As opposed to taking all this crap that we import now, we pay somebody workers in the States to put it together, to truck it to the port, to put it on a ship, to ship it all the way over here, to unload from the ship, put it on a truck, drive it to the store, unload it from the store. Actually, they drive it to a warehouse and then they transship it again to the store, drive it to the store, and then make the profit and sell it to you, and then we throw the crap in the dump. And then the legislature has to spend 30 years to write a new dump bill so we can create a new dump. That's not smart, right? It might make a short-term profit for the companies that currently import beer, but it's not good for the way we run our island and our economy. If we created good legislation that gave incentives to companies to bottle on island or reuse things as opposed to even recycling them, it's a smarter way to do stuff. I mean, recycling is really insane for us. We take aluminum cans, we crush them up, and then we give them to Anheuser-Busch so that they can make a profit using your labor to collect all the cans and ship it back to their canning plants in the States. And they do it to make money. I mean, I know it sounds like it's this nice magnanimous gesture to put up these things in the schools, but hey, they wouldn't do it if they're not making money. Trust me. It's reusing is far better than recycling. And when I was a kid, all of our bottles were recycled. We can do that. It's not like it's this weird communist theory. Trust me, it's something that makes sense, and it would make sense for all of us.
So, have you focused on that?
I'm getting there. See, right now we're just desperate. If we can't fix our educational system with funding, like I said, if anybody thinks that the GovGuam employees are overpaid, then you don't know what you're talking about. If you think that we spend too much on government, once again, you don't know what you're talking about. And that's a common myth that's been put through. You know, the interesting thing about Guam is when I go back to the states, like I was just at the National Conference of State Legislators, and for them, right, it's a different system. See, here our government has to do the job of a state government, a county government, a city government, and in some cases a federal government. See, we don't have all those other functions that everybody else can. So it's important for us to fund everything the way we do, and we underfund it drastically. I mean, like I said, for more than 2 decades at this point, we've spent less than half the national average per child on education. It's easy to find those stats. You can go to ncs.ed.gov, and you can find out exactly what other states spend on it. Any more questions?
Just one last question for the listener.
Thank you guys so much for having me out. Once again, there you go. Check out my website, www. Thanks.